second secret is the journey toward empowerment. What is the journey toward empowerment? All the journey towards personal empowerment and developing your empowered self begins with self-awareness. The first stage, the first step, whatever you want to call it, the first stage is know thyself. It's in all the mystical books. It's in all the metaphysical teachings. In order to love myself, I have to know who I am, right? And all the metaphysical books talk about self-love, and that's one of the steps towards empowerment. But it's not enough without knowing who you are. So awareness that leads to acceptance of self, the first stage. Because you can become aware of yourself and say, yeah, I'm a big schmuck. It's not about self-awareness that leads to self-judgment. It's about self-awareness that leads to self-acceptance. The first stage of the empowered journey. And then once you become aware of who you are, the truth of who you are, not who you've become, not the conditioned ego, what it means to be a man, what it means to be a woman, all the conditioning that made you into who you are today, but who you truly are, who you can become beyond the conditioned self, to be aware of who you are, beyond the illusion of what you become. That's the first stage. And when you do that, then you open up to connect and receive your self-worth, the second stage. Being worthy, self-worth, self-awareness that leads to self-worth. I deserve to live. I deserve to thrive. I deserve to be successful. I deserve, because I am connected to a soul. And that soul in me has a spirit. And the soul and the spirit in me is connected to God, Goddess. And that means I'm a spiritual being. And I'm valuable because I'm a spiritual being. And no one can take that away from me. And there's nothing I can do to get more of it. The ego says, I got to be worthy. I got to do all these things. I got to be a good person. I got to do everything for everybody else. And once I do, then I'll be worthy to be loved. No, you already are worthy. And you already are loved by God, Goddess, all that is. There's nothing you can do to stop it, and there's nothing you can do to get more of it. You need to let it in and accept it and realize it. So self-worth is the second stage of the empowered journey. The third stage is once you have this awareness and worth, then you can start to develop, hear the word develop, consciously, self-esteem. The love that you earn by the way you live your life. That's what self-esteem is, by the way. It's esteem. It's developed. It's the way I function today. I can feel good about myself because you know what? At the end of the day, whether you're aware of it or not, your subconscious mind is always evaluating how you functioned in the day. There's a part of you that's always evaluating yourself. And that's what determines your self-esteem. And there are basically there's more than that. There's 7 principles, but I'm going to give you the foundation, which are just 4 for today, of the stages of what make up the foundation of a person who has self-esteem. The first one is they're honest. They're honest with themselves. They're honest with other people. And that's something that no one can make you do, and no one can take it away from you when you choose to. You can be locked up in prison and still be honest. It's a choice of who am I going to be. The second is responsible. I'm going to choose to take responsibility for myself, for my experiences, for my future. I'm going to respond rather than keep reacting to life. I'm going to choose to respond to the challenge of becoming empowered versus the default when I do not choose to be empowered, which is to be disempowered. The third is to function with integrity. Honesty, responsibility, integrity means to make a space for all parts of yourself. To expand beyond, have integrity, means to make a space for the masculine and the feminine within you. To honor both equally. To make a space for the warrior and the nurturer. For the creator and the destroyer. For the seeker of love and the seeker of truth. These parts of your consciousness that are all there. And see, what happens is most people identify with one or the other. Oh yeah, Michaiel, I'm the nurturer. I always take care of people and I love to love and care, but I can't fight, I can't worry, I hate a conflict, I can't deal with a conflict. No. Then you're out of integrity with yourself because you have that ability, but you refuse because of judgment to embrace it. So the third component in the third step of self-esteem is integrity, to function as a whole being. The fourth step is trust. Honesty, responsibility, integrity, and trust is the foundation from which I operate day in and day out. And at the end of the day, it could have been a crappy day, things went wrong at work, but I can look back and say, you know what? It was a flusher of a day. However, I did function with honesty and responsibility and integrity and trust, and therefore I can feel good about myself by the way I functioned today. Even though the outcome was not what I wanted, I still operated with self-esteem, and I can feel good about that. And that's something no one can make you do and no one can take away. It's self-generated power of being who you truly are. Awareness that leads to self-acceptance, self-worth that lifts to self-esteem. And then what's the fourth step of the empowered self? Fourth step is self-love in the empowered journey. Now there's 7 steps. Most people think, oh, self-love, that should be the final one. That should be the end all. No, this is the mountain that you climb. The mountain that you climb. So you start with self-awareness, self-worth, self-esteem, and self-love. And now, once you get to self-love, the journey is downhill. It's a triangle. It's a mountain up, and then the other 3 steps are so much easier. But self-love is the love that you earn and you recognize and you receive from your soul and your spirit, and it's the self-love that you generate from these other 4 steps. When you function with self-esteem, you see, it's hard to love yourself and have low self-esteem. You can't. You need esteem. You need to function and be proud of the way you live your life. And then I can truly love myself because of the way I live my life, because of the fact that I know I'm connected to the divine, that I'm an expression and reflection of God, Goddess, all that is, because I'm aware of my weaknesses and my strengths. I'm aware of who I am. 4th step, self-love. Now, what comes out of this, the next 3 steps emerge, they kind of cascade easily. So the journey to get to self-love is the challenge, and it's the hardest part of this program of moving to the empowered self. But once you get to self-love, then the next step that naturally evolves from the esteem and the love is self-confidence. Self-confidence is the 5th stage to developing the empowered self. And see, a lot of people teach self-confidence to people that don't have any self-esteem, and they don't know how to love themselves. And so the self-confidence becomes self-importance, becomes self-bravado. It becomes, well, let me convince everybody how important I am and how great I am so that they'll think I'm confident. I'm going to go out there and act as if, but I don't feel it, and nothing really changes without these other steps, without this foundation in place. So self-confidence naturally emerges, which is your ability to confide in yourself, to rely upon yourself, to lean upon yourself, to be self-reliant. Emotionally, mentally, physically, to be self-reliant to some degree is what self-confidence is. Now, as self-confidence emerges, it is the way you function, it's a state of being, and it comes out of the foundation of self-esteem. Self-esteem is the way you live your life by being honest, responsible, integral, and trusting. There's other components, but it's based on ideals and principles. And the frequency in which you apply your ideals and principles, the frequency in which you would apply your ideals and your principles is what character is made up of. A person with character. And when you have character, you start to function with confidence. You rely upon yourself. You know you're a worthy, trustworthy person. You know that you are a responsible person. You know that you're an honest person, and you are worthy of being trusted. So therefore you can be confident, and people can sense that. This person I can trust. And they have this presence to them. They have this radiance. They have this confidence that emerges from who they are based upon esteem and love. And then they function, and they know that they can depend upon themselves. They can rely upon themselves. That's what self-confidence is. The 6th step of the journey of empowerment then is self-respect. To respect yourself. What does that mean? To self-respect, and if you go to any prison, do any work in any prisons, or you get there, what do all the prison mates are always talking about? You don't respect me. No, nobody respects me. Well, they don't know what respect is half the time. That's why they don't feel it, or know how to give it, or they don't respect themselves. So nobody else they're going to attract respects them either. But respect is once you have opened up to the empowered journey and you have a level of esteem and confidence and self-love. Self-respect is to look again, is what self-respect means. To respect, means to go back to, return to. Spect is to look at. Spectator, spectacles, spectator. To look at, to view. To respect is to look at yourself again. To not project the past of who you've been, or not to project the past of another person is what respect is. Oh, that person's never going to change. They're always that way. That's a lack of respect, because life is about growth and evolution, and people are going to change. And a lot of relationships grow apart because people do not allow for the change to take place. I want the person that I married 20 years ago to be the same and not change. Well, that's a lack of respect, because life is about growth and evolution. And you're changing and you're growing. And how are you looking at and owning the fact that you have? Yeah, I'm a different person I was 5 years ago. I'm much more evolved, I'm much more wiser, I'm much more loving, I'm much more compassionate, I'm much more whatever. And I need to look at that and own that. And that's what self-respect is. The person who lacks self-respect says, oh no, I'm the same old person I've always been, nothing's changed. That's a lack of respect for yourself or another person. I hope that makes sense for you. Now, the final stage of the empowered journey is that of self-realization, self-understanding, where you realize and recognize that you have impact on life. You have impact on other people, and you consciously direct it. That I'm going to have positive impact. I'm going to be a light in a world that wants to think of itself as dark. I'm going to stand in my power and my strength, and I'm going to function from that, to co-create with God, Goddess, all that is, to co-create with my soul and spirit. That's an empowered person. The self-realization, which is what Maslow talked about, which Carl Jung talked about, and it's a very rare thing in our world, unfortunately. There's very, very few grown-ups who have chosen to become adult, and it's only the adult that can become empowered. The body forces you to be grown up, but the adult is a choice. And when you function as the adult, the spiritually empowered adult, you can realize the fullness of your being. So those are the 7 steps, the journey toward empowerment. From self-awareness to self-realization, from self-worth to self-respect, from self-esteem to self-confidence, with self-love as the pinnacle. And that is the journey.